there's such a delicate, very almost part of breakthrough. I know that's not English, but there's a moment of close breakthrough that's about to happen, close release that's about to happen, probably close deliverance that's about to happen. But because you're so conscious of what you're doing, you yourself stop yourself and you go, oh, okay, no, we can't. We can't do this. We have to get back into reality. Or, oh, I can't. You're like, you stop yourself and God is like, darn it. I'm sure if God could say, damn it, he would, It's like, you were so close, my baby. You were so, so close. That was the moment of breakthrough. And we stop ourselves. And I think it's in those moments where being stops. And God can actually reveal to you and show you who you are. I'm getting chills right now as we speak. Where just because something feels foreign to your nature doesn't mean that it's actually against your nature. Probably that foreign moment is who you truly are, but it's foreign to your conditioning.
I'm taking a step forward to this life. There is nothing I'm owing. Do not play it safe, that's boring. Can't outside with me while it's pouring.
Oh gosh, I need to really stop laughing at my own jokes. All right, so welcome to the very first episode of Being. I'm super, super excited and elated to be here. But you know what I mean? I'm so funny. Oh my God, guys. Like I can't help myself. I really can't. It's just, anyways. So welcome to the very first episode of Being. This has been a very long time coming. And I know that maybe there may be some of you who'd be like, oh, but Bahumi, we just started Open Book with Bahumi. And, we're on like a rhythm. You know what I mean? Like there was just something happening. And of course, there were other things that I started last year, which I really didn't and couldn't complete because of a lot of unforeseen circumstances. I meant for that to sound British. No, because a lot of unforeseen circumstances. But a huge part of me feels like all of those things were leading up to this, right? I have always wanted to just be and have a platform where I can just be. When you are in the industry that I'm in, and if you've been in the industry that I'm in for as long as I've been in it, not just by choice, but even just by birth, I want to say by birthright, but just by my upbringing, the people that have surrounded me, the people who raised me, being yourself sounds like such a a task, let alone a cliche. It just sounds like such a it almost sounds contradictory, because like someone's telling you to be yourself, so then you kind of switch into like another person as if the person that you were before was not yourself, and then you wonder if the person that you switched into is you, and you also don't know exactly where that statement qualifies. Like, where can I be myself? Do you mean be yourself like at home? Do you mean be yourself like when you're around people? And then also you are conditioned, or judgment. I mean, it's inevitable for everybody, but judgment feels a lot more excessive when many eyes are on you from jump. And so this whole idea of being myself was just never like a thing that I could really grapple with. And even when I tried to many times in my life, even the latter years of my life, it was just such a difficult thing to do. And then that even trickled down into my relationship with God, right? Where I'm even told, yeah, be yourself with God. But conditioning can just be such a tricky thing. It can be such an all-consuming thing that even when you are free to be yourself, your conditioning disallows you from doing that. So even in the presence of the Almighty God, who should know everything and should definitely know you, whether you believe in Him or not, it's hard to just do that. It's hard to just be that. So how do you be yourself? How do you get yourself into a space where it is effortless? And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And I think it's also why I'm kind of here. It's not just a me thing, just because I was just, born in front of the camera, or I was in the public eye my whole life. it's something that everyone faces, because really, no matter where you find yourself, judgment is inevitable. And there are people who are accepting of who you are, to a certain extent, and then there are people who want you to be a certain way, because who you are just doesn't come to grips with, I don't know, I guess their natural surroundings, if I can put it that way, you know. And there's another interesting nugget to that. There's people who are okay with you being yourself, and more often that will be like, let's say, your parents, people who raised you, maybe your siblings, your family, etc. But even that self is an idea of how they raised you to be. So even then it's like, so who is self? What is self? And I have been on, I want to say, a lifelong journey, because everything comes together and works together for good. But intentionally, I think I've been on, let's say, a 3-year journey, and more so last year, to really exercising that and understanding, at least to my current understanding, what that really is. What is it to be? Right? What is being? And how can we create spaces where people are comfortable enough to just be themselves? I was watching a podcast episode from one of my favorite people ever on podcasts, on social media. His name is Jay Shetty. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. And he was interviewing another one of my faves, Trevor Noah. I'm pretty sure he's all of our faves, unless, well, South Africa, he better be your fave. I don't understand like why you'd hate on the dude. But yeah, so I don't know how the rest of the world feels about him, but we definitely love him a lot in SA. So I was watching an episode where Jay Shetty was interviewing Trevor Noah. And one of the questions that Jay asked Trevor was, what's the worst piece of advice you've ever been given? And Trevor Noah said, be yourself. And I totally understood that, right? I'm looking at other people, by the way, if you guys are lost as to where my eyeline is going, for those watching. But I totally understood what he meant by that. He didn't even have to explain it. In fact, his explanation was pretty wishy-washy. But he didn't even have to explain it, because I completely understood what he meant when he was just kind of turned off by be yourself, right? For the very reasons that I gave in the beginning. It's like, what do you mean be yourself, right? And then also, who, and I don't say this rudely, but who are you for me to be myself with? Like, can you really take myself? Like, can you handle myself? What if myself is just too offensive for yourself? What if myself is just too jarring for yourself? And what if myself is you asking, how are you? And I say, I'm not fine. Then I go off on a tangent of me telling you why I'm not fine. Can you really take that? You know, or would you rather prefer that I'm fine and then we keep it moving and we do what we're here to do? So I totally understood what he meant when he said it's one of the worst pieces of advice he's ever been given, and maybe there's more that he could elaborate on with that. But he also said knowing when to be yourself is what he'd rather prefer, right? As much as I think I understood what he meant from that, I kind of believe that there's kind of a flaw in that, though, also, because if you say knowing when to be yourself is the goal, means that there are times when it is okay to not be yourself. And I personally, it's just a personal opinion, I personally can't find a resolve with that. I'm not necessarily comfortable with that, because I don't believe in lying, and I know that that's a stretch, right? But I don't believe in lying. I don't believe in deception. I don't even believe in a watered down truth or a white lie type of thing. And so I believe that if there's ever a time where you should not be yourself, then that means that you are in that moment living or actioning out a lie, you know? And so I would rather, as opposed to choose when to be yourself, I'd rather go for decide which self is conducive for the moment and then be that. I'd rather say choose which self is necessary for that moment. and then exercise that. And that takes a lot. Like, that takes a lot of learning. That takes a lot of introspection. It takes a lot of time spent with self. It takes a lot of intentionality as well. So that means that, you know, before you go into spaces, you kind of have to be prepared for that space. And I'm not saying that there aren't moments that will come where you're not prepared to be, you know, to be put in that position, and then now you're kind of like glitching or whatever. But the more prepared you are, the easier, or the more equipped you'll be to handle unforeseen, you know, events or circumstances. But I'd rather go for, no, be yourself. Just choose which self to be. And so, which kind of brings me to the topic of discussion today. The important thing is to learn yourself, so that when you are presented with situations, or when you are present in situations, when you are in circumstances or around people, obviously this can take time, but it is a lot easier to then just be, you know, because I realize that a lot of people put on facades, and a lot of people just like they're just not themselves, because they don't even know themselves, or if they do know who they are, they're not used to being themselves. So it's a lot easier to just go into their default setting of not being themselves, right? So I realized that the more time that you spend with yourself, and not just with yourself as in like the more time you spend alone, but the more time that you spend understanding yourself, introspecting, hating aspects of yourself because you are spending that much time introspecting, and then getting to love aspects of yourself, the more you can, you know, bring yourself to practicing that, you know, and then you get more comfortable in that. And then once you're faced with people, is when it'll be less challenging to be. And then you won't have to walk on eggshells every time trying to wonder if people will catch you out, or if people will, you know, catch your, you know, what's the word? Catch your jig? Catch the jig? What's the word? Like, realize that you are just playing the world. You know what I mean? And so I think the bigger focus is on understanding who self is, and which part of self is conditioning, and which part of self is actually you. Now, this is the journey that I feel like I'm on. And to be honest, I think that it's a lifelong journey, because you've spent your whole life being conditioned to the way that you are, right? And I don't think that there's a problem in conditioning per se. It's just deciding if whether that conditioning is a trauma response, or whether that conditioning is actually healthy. And that's where God comes in. That's actually where I was able to really find myself, and I'm continuing the journey of finding self. This is a topic that a lot of people kind of battle with, especially the ones who either don't believe in God, or have a very toxic relationship with God, or the idea of God, or just have a very I want to say just anxiety stirring relationship with God. For lack of a better word, I really need to expand on my vocabulary. Where even the very idea of finding out who you are based on what God says about you can be something that you battle with emotionally and mentally, and then probably even physically, because it seems to conflict with even the parts that you really like about yourself sometimes, you know. And then God just starts to be maybe even this tyrant to you. And I know that that sounds pretty harsh, but God starts to be like this person who dictates how you ought to be, and doesn't embrace who you truly are. And then you kind of have more of a relationship with the church than you do with God himself, or you have a relationship with your idea of God, or your very rigid idea of God, as opposed to the embracing God, the God who actually just wants you to be, so that he can work you out and then reveal who you truly are, and then you can live that out with ease. That's the battle that I found myself in last year. I found myself wanting to just express myself. That was the whole point of starting Open Book with Bahumi. I just wanted to be an open book. But I also realized that I wasn't comfortable with being an open book, because there were parts of me that I wasn't comfortable with sharing. So then again, I also started feeling like, I'm living a lie, and that's why we're kind of here with being, right? Like I said, all of this stuff just came together, and I really feel like this is where we're supposed to be, at least for the season. But But I found myself just battling with this whole idea of being. So because I couldn't be myself with people, be myself with even my family, you know what I mean? I don't just mean the people who are, outside and social media, you guys, we haven't met, but I even mean with family. It just, you realize that if you're battling in one area of your life without even realizing it, it kind of trickles down into every other area. And so I couldn't be myself with the world. I couldn't be myself with family and friends. And then for sure, I couldn't be myself with God. And then I even felt like I had to perform. Someone said it here. I'm actually looking at the person right now. I hope she doesn't mind. I'm not going to say her name. But someone said it here that, like, sometimes she felt or feels that she has to perform even for God, which is ironic and ridiculous, right? That we find ourselves in these places where we have to perform for the all-knowing God, for the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords, and the one who knows us inside and out, like a very intricate details. And we're like, oh, but I still have to perform for this being. And maybe it's the conditioning that the church has given us of him, of this being, not just the church, but religion, different religions, different beliefs, ideas that, okay, this is how you have to present yourself to be when you're around this person, as if he doesn't already know that you're acting. You know what I mean? And it's like, it defeats the purpose. It's like, well, you're all knowing, so why the heck am I acting for you? Or why am I pretending for you? But that just shows how strong conditioning can be. And so that's the space that I found myself in last year, where I was just performing for everyone. And that's a hard thing to say, because maybe you may not think, okay, so were you just being fake the whole time? No, it's almost like they were cracks, It's like there were moments where I was so close, where God is like, oh, we're there. And then I lose it because conditioning, right? And that's what happens even in prayer, right? Even when you are, I said this as well last year, even when you're alone and maybe you are just having such an emotional moment, either really sad or like very, very happy, and you just wanna cry. Like you just wanna cry. And then you cry. And there's a moment, there's such a delicate, very almost part of breakthrough. I know that's not English, but there's a moment of close breakthrough that's about to happen. Close release that's about to happen. Probably close deliverance that's about to happen. But because you're so conscious of what you're doing, you yourself stop yourself and you go, oh, okay, no, we can't do this. We have to get back into reality. Or, oh, I can't. You're like, you stop yourself, and God is like, darn it. I'm sure if God could say, damn it, he would, It's like, you were so close, my baby. You were so, so close. That was the moment of breakthrough. And we stop ourselves. And I think it's in those moments where being stops. And God can actually reveal to you and show you who you are. I'm getting chills right now as we speak. Where just because something feels foreign to your nature doesn't mean that it's actually against your nature. Probably that foreign moment is who you truly are, but it's foreign to your conditioning. And it's in that embracing of that foreign nature, of that foreign self, that you reach your breakthrough and you come to the realization of self, at least in that aspect. I realized that it was in the very vulnerable moments where I was able to realize who I am. And who I am is a broad spectrum. I so want to get into this self-discovery properly, like in depth, but I really want to break this up in like shorter episodes, because I know I can go on forever. How many minutes are we on now, guys? 21. Okay, cool. Okay, we're still good for time. I may just jump into it now a little bit, but I really want to flesh this out a bit more, and I promise you we will. I mean, you can already tell that I'm going off on tangents, but all these tangents are but niblets of a bigger pot of food, and we're gonna have different meals. Look at me being so poetic. We're gonna have different meals where we unpack, certain aspects of being. But I really want us to at least get, just the pieces for now, so you guys kind of know, where this is going, right? So God says in His Word. I'm Christian, for those of you who don't know, so that's definitely the word that we're going to jump into. But also, I don't want that to block you or to limit you, right? If you don't believe in God, if you don't understand God, if you believe in something else, please just stay and listen. For all you know, this could be very conducive for you. I have many friends who believe different things, and we meet up literally. Actually, we have this thing called Balcony Sundays as friends. We meet up with different people who believe different things, and we all chat and we realize, oh my God, like God is bigger than what we thought He was. So just stick around, and then you'll be able to get a better understanding of who this creator is for you. So God in His Word says, in the book of Acts, there's a verse that says, in Him we live, in Him we move, and in Him we have our being. That was pretty much I want to say the glue for what started being. Because at first it was a feeling, it was an unction, it was conversation with God, and then He led me to that verse. And I think that's the verse that kind of stuck everything together. Now, for those of you who don't know, Christian or not Christian, that verse actually isn't Christian. Like that quote actually isn't even a Christian quote. That was something that I think it was Apostle Paul who was talking to a group of, I think it's like, they live in Athens. I don't want to say Athenians. I could be getting it wrong, right? But a group of people who lived in Athens. And so they predominantly believed a lot in Greek mythology, of course. And so they had this inscription written on one of their God figures. So they built like an altar for God, and they wrote, in Him we live, we move, and have our being. And so with their understanding of Him, it was just this idea of this being that they have no relationship with, no understanding of who He is, of who this person is. Like they were just like, they knew that there was a thing, they knew that there was a God, they knew that there was something, but they couldn't necessarily like connect who that person was. So all they wrote was, in Him we live, in Him we move, in Him we have our being. And so what Apostle Paul meant to do there was he came to them and he connected what they already believe in with the truth that he knew to be, and he connected this to, and was like, well, just so I can help you, let me introduce you to who this Him is. Let me give you an understanding of who this Him is. And for me, I just found that to be just such a beautiful thing. One, because I think it's so interesting when you connect someone's truth to your truth, and then you guys come together to realize their truth. You know what I mean? And as opposed to, just saying, no, they couldn't possibly be some insight in what you believe. They couldn't possibly, you know what I mean? No, this is what it is, and blah blah. But when you connect someone else's truth with their truth, you kind of, there's a harmony that's created from that, and then there's even more truth that's revealed that maybe both of you didn't know. So there's that aspect of it. But there's also the fact that this God exists in us and through us. Oh God, I'm going to say something that's probably very controversial and maybe taboo. I hope not incorrect. But there's literally nothing in existence that is outside of Him, whether you believe in Him or not. Dare I say, whether you've received Christ or not. So a lot of the time, and this is what I kind of grapple with a lot of Christians, and I'm not judging you, maybe this is, what we've learned, right? We believe that, just because we have Christ living inside of us, it means that the world doesn't have God or can't exist, in a sense, because they don't have God. Now, just because we have the fullness of the deity living inside of us because we have Christ Jesus, and that's a whole other explanation as to what that means, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody else doesn't have God existing through or around or have the possibility of connecting with him. Thus, in him we live and move and have our being. He even says in his word that if I make my bed in Sheol, meaning if I make my bed in hell, you are there. And I think that these are the mysteries that people kind of can't or battle to come to terms with, right? That God can exist or be with a non-Christian, maybe just not the consciousness of him, and certainly not the salvation of him, which is in Christ, which is a whole other thing. But in him we live and move and have our being. What Apostle Paul was trying to do here was connect them to that being so that we can actually have consciousness of existing through him. Does that make sense? So if I can put it this way, you have a parent, you have a mother and a father. The very orphan had a mother and a father. The person who is adopted has a biological mother and father. Are they conscious of it though? And are they conscious of their bloodline? Are they living life knowing or having connection with who that person is? Do they know that how they look is directly linked to their creator, or creator in the sense of the earthly realm? Of course, I don't mean God, right? Are they conscious of that? Do they know their heritage? Do they know their actual language, not the language that was learned? See, it's easy for us to comprehend something like birth and existence and being in connection to our parents who have a relationship with our parents, because we can make these connections. We can go, oh, okay, I look like this because my mom looks like this. I speak Setswana because my mother ke Motswana. I speak Zulu because my father Zulu. And in the Zulu culture, we dress this way, we act this way, we are dominant this way because it's in our Zuluness. You know what I mean? It's easy for us to make those connections, and so you then feel less lost in life because you can. There's a web to your identity, right? But think of that with someone who doesn't know their biological mother and father. And perhaps they've learned to live with that. But I think that there is something to the notion of people who were adopted and lived socially acceptable and healthy and beautiful lives or upbringings, right? They were raised right, went to the greater schools, the parents who adopted them raised them as best as they possibly could, gave them faith, gave them food, shelter, school, etc. Yet there's a moment in their lives where they go, but I want to know. I want to know who my mom is. I want to know who my dad is. I think that that's very telling to how we are as human beings, to our humanity, as to why we want to know who we are, why we want to identify with where we come from, right? And so I think that that's the connection that Apostle Paul was creating there when he said, in him we live and move and have our being. So it's not just enough that we do that, but it's important for you to find out who this being is so that you can exist as you ought to be, and actually really be yourself, right? So if you think about the child with adopted parents and no connection with their biological parents, it's like they want to know. Otherwise, they feel incomplete. They feel like they can't really exist, or they're not really living in truth. There's a void, if I can put it that way, that needs to be filled. And if that void isn't filled, you're only existing through conditioning. And so I think that that's the space that God placed me in last year, where it's like I thought I knew God, but I thought I knew God. I feel like that's more accurate to say. I thought I knew God, and I boxed him. I knew in theory that there was more to him, and I knew that there was probably more that I don't know, and I never will find out. But I also knew that there were aspects of me that still wanted to know more. And not just know more for him, because of course we are to know God, but know more for me as well, as selfish as that sounds, we are taught as Christians that maybe that's also a bad thing, right? To like, no, we can't just to know God for yourself is maybe selfish. Maybe that's just what I felt. I felt like, no, but I'm supposed to know God because he is the King of all kings, the Lord of all lords, and he is this big deity, and so you're supposed to know him by obligation, or else he's gonna punish you. Essentially, it's like there was just this disconnect where I just thought him to be just this. I really don't know if tyrant is the word, but it feels foreign to say that right now because I know him to be so much more compassionate now. But that's at least what I felt. I didn't say it, of course, but I just thought that he was just too strict for me to know him personally. Not knowing that that's actually what he wants. It's funny because I preached that. I preached that that's what he wants, but I didn't really believe it. Truly speaking, I didn't believe that for myself. And I think that there are a lot of people who walk around like that. And I think it was in understanding that he actually wants me to know him for myself, that I could be comfortable with being whoever I wanted to be and how he called me to be in front of other people. That was a challenge for me. Like, that was one of the biggest challenges of last year and beginning of this year. Because I realized, what does it take? Like, what does it take for you to really just be yourself in the presence of God? What does it take to be accepted by God? And what does it take to actually be? What does that even mean? And I decided that, look, it wasn't an easy decision I'd come to. There was a lot of paranoia and whatnot. But I decided that, you know what? I am tired. Like, I am tired of even just trying to figure it out. I am tired of even asking, okay, so God, what does it take? Like, what should I do? I'm just going to surrender. I'm just going to be. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to open my Bible. Can I tell that was a very difficult thing for me? Like, as a Christian, I'm not even going to open my Bible, or rather, let me say, I'm not even going to go to Google and then be like, okay, what does it take to be? You know what I mean? Because I was the kind of person that I always was. But what I decided was, I knew what I knew as far as I knew it to be, which was, I know that God is real. I know that God exists, and I know that it is in Christ. That I know for a fact, for a truth. You can't even pull me away from that one. And I know that people are like, oh, maybe you're too rigid or whatever. No, like, that one I know for a fact. It's been proven to me personally. And I have a lot of foundation that's grounded on that. But knowing what I know now, because I want to know you more, and there's still an aspect of me that's religious, I'm just going to just go, you know what? If you are the God that you say you are, if you are truly God, and if you are the God that seeks after people and seeks after me, because I've seen you do it for other people, then I want you to do it for me, and I want you to prove yourself to me. And he knew the hard posture that I was saying that in. Like, it wasn't like oh yeah, let's see who, you know what I mean? Like, there was just like, I'm tired, I'm done, I'm giving up. If you really want me to be, this is how I'm being right now. Like, I'm not even going to fake it with you. I'm not going to try to rabashaka my way into trying to figure out how to be or who you are. I'm just going to be. And I plan to do this. I plan to fast. I had plans for the beginning of this year. I did. We're in March now. I had plans. I have a way that I start the year. Every year I fast. I have it at the checkbox. I have all these things. But this time, this is what I'm doing. And then slowly but surely, in the crying, because sometimes I'll do this and just cry. Sometimes I'll do this and the prayer would just be a breath. And sometimes the prayer would just be a hum. Sometimes the prayer would just me just speaking. And I slowly found myself just doing this, just raising my arms and surrendering. And I think it was in that surrender that I learned how to be. So, what is being? In a nutshell, Bahumi's nutshell, which is another hour. I'm joking. Um, being is surrendering to the moment and letting God take over. Our God, He says that He is the great I am. I think that that's one of the dopest explanations or names of God I have ever come across. Even though I know who the one true God is, calling yourself the I am is the biggest thing ever you could call yourself. I think it's the dopest statement that can ever be. Because I think it's also one of the smartest. I always tell people, God saying I am that I am is probably the biggest out ever. Because in whatever He is, He never contradicted Himself. So He is whoever He needs to be for the moment. So my God says that He is the I am. And that's just the English translation. In fact, in truth, it's just a breath. Like if you were to ask God who He is and there was no language ever created, it would just be like it's just existence. He just is. That's why He is. That's why He says He is. He is the beginning, He is the end. He just is. So if He says He is, He says I am. And if you go further, He says I am that I am. If I am that I am is my God. And if I am that I am is not just my God, but my Father, meaning that He made me, meaning that He is my origin. That's what Father means. I originate from Him. The origin of Bahumi, the origin of you, is Him. It's this being. And Him not as in Him isn't gender, like Him as in being, is this person. And He is who He is, and He is who He needs to be at whatever given moment. Then that would mean that who you are, and I know that this sounds deeper than it is, but maybe it is, and I know that it sounds complicated, but really search it out. That would mean that who you are is whoever you need to be for the moment that presents itself. And there is context to that. There is context to that because you are who you are because of who He is and who He created you to be. The difference between Him and the difference between you, the difference between His I am and the difference between your you are or your I am is that He is the creator. You are creation. So you are who you need to be in any given moment that He presents you with. So if He says, oh, you are a mighty man of valor, which is a quote from His word, whether you feel afraid, whether you feel like you are incapable, whether you feel like you could never amount, you could never quantify, you don't qualify, He says you are a mighty man of valor, meaning you are valiant, meaning you are courageous. That means that in that moment, my babe, you have courage. And the great thing about our I am is that He only has great things to say about us anyways. Why else would He have Why would he have horrible things to say about the very creation that is from him? He has nothing bad to say about himself. Even though I was about to get into something that I probably shouldn't get into right now, but I will say that even in the world that he created to be amazing and perfect, turning out not the way that he intended for it to be in his direct purpose, he still says that he is good. So if he can say that he is good, having created an ideally perfect world that has now gone into shambles and that he will now destroy, created you. And then you have all these fears, all these anxieties, all these, can I really be myself around you, God? Can I really da 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 da? Says, my love, sweetheart, Bahumi, Tato, Mbali, Tumi. What's your name? Tanaka. Be. Be. Be what? Be strong. Be what? Be courageous. Be loving. Be good to your neighbor. Be good to yourself. Do you not think that that makes you more of what he calls you to be than what you have conditioned or have allowed conditioning yourself to be? My English failed me there for 2 seconds. But do you not think that that holds a lot more weight and that defines you? That defines you way more than what society and conditioning have defined you to be. And so, what do we need to be? What do we need to actually be comfortable in this being? To actually be okay to be? Him. We need Him. In Him, we live and move and have our being. If you try to be without Him, that's where the battle starts. That's where the fighting and the agony and the anxiety come from. Like that's where it's a, oh gosh, that's where it's strife and not ease. And it feels tough at times because right now you're still comfortable in your flesh. It's so much more comfortable to pretend to be someone you're not even in front of God. Because then you even feel like He heard your prayer. But unless you go, God, nah, Mudimu, I can say, I don't know. And you're frustrating me right now. Like you're really frustrating me right now because I can't hear you. You're frustrating me right now because I feel like I'm supposed to be this way, but I'm not this way. And you're frustrating me right now because I don't even know you. And you're not coming to me. Like what's happening? And that's with God. These are the tough conversations you have with God too. But you go, you're frustrating me right now because I'm seeing everything go to shambles. I'm seeing the world is like this and like that, but you don't seem to have an intervention in it. And yet you're the all-knowing God. I'm seeing this. Like you're really making me mad right now. Now it's easier to come to God with problems that don't have to do with Him. And you're like, yeah, God, man, they did this, they did that, they did that. But then what if your problem is Him? Come to Him with that honesty. You don't think He knows you think that already. Be. And it's in that being where you come into connection with truth. And then you can relive or live out the true being of who you are. And you go, oh, actually, it wasn't you. It was them. Or it was me. Or actually, it was you. You did do that. You did take them out of my life. You did harden their heart and make them angry towards me. You did do that. Why? Why did you do that? Why? Why was it necessary for you to do that? Why did you put me in this life? Why did you make me live the way? Why am I born into the family that I'm born into? Why don't I have this? Aren't you the provider? Aren't you the this? Why? Oh, my eyes twitching hard. I always feel like maybe that must be the Holy Spirit. You know, why? Ask. There's no shame in asking. But if you want the truth, my love, you better be ready for that answer though as well. But it all starts with being. And at first, if you don't know how to be, at least just start with the self that feels more natural in the space of your Father, in the presence of your Father, so that you can actually learn to be in truth. And then you can present yourself the way you truly are with the rest of the world. The only reason that I can be myself in front of you guys right now is because I learned how to be myself, and I'm still learning how to be myself in my Father's presence. And man, he's dope. Oh God, he's so dope. Oh my God, he's so dope. It's a presence, it's a feeling, it's an unexplainable thing because he is spirit. So it's just be and embrace it. Whatever comes, embrace it. And he will meet you there. I promise you he will. Even in that I don't believe you exist. Oh, he will meet you there. I've actually been there. He will meet you there. If he is the one true God who truly loves you, he will meet you there. All you have to do is embrace it. Okay. It's time for being. I'm excited. Yeah. It's time for being to unleash. And I don't just mean being the podcast. I mean being you. It's time for you to unleash. God says that the earth is waiting for the manifestation of the sons and daughters of man of God. What is it? Yo, the earth is waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God. I get it, but but it's the world is waiting for your manifestation, for your true manifestation. The world is waiting for what could happen when you actually be. What ground is gonna break just because you decided to be yourself? What's gonna happen? What's waiting to happen? We're waiting for you to be. It's time for your identity to arise. But that's only met with your honesty and truth. So let it be. Let it be. So that God can be. I love you guys. See you in the next episode. Bye.